All right. So this is a really, I think, very useful exercise to do while you're in the lab to really kind of understand where the SPA is going to be and how to do a ligation. One of the things in general, though, just about epistaxis that I think is really important is that a lot of times you might be set up to do an SPA ligation, but you can actually often find the area that's bleeding in a spontaneous epistaxis case and just cauterize that with a suction bovie. So we're on the left side. This is the maxillary antrostomy that we created before. Here you can see the middle turbinate attachment. And one thing is that you can often see along the back wall, you can sometimes see the outline of where the blood vessel is going to be running. So it should be running somewhere in here. This is obviously sort of right at the back wall of the maxillary sinus. And then once you get beyond that, there's going to be fat beyond that as well. So here, what I would typically do is just start elevating this mucosa. And what we're looking for is the crista ethmoidalis, which is going to be this bony protuberance that is almost always present. I don't think I've ever not seen it present. One of the things that I often see people doing here is that they're elevating all the way posteriorly in this direction. And if you look, you can see you're already almost to the nasopharynx. So the artery is not going to be in that space. So where you're going to look, we're sort of elevating here. This is the crista right here. And as we get behind that, that's where you're going to actually see the blood vessel. So it's always going to be posterior to the crista, but where it's actually located and superior to inferior is different for every single patient. You can start to see that there's tethering here that's actually happening, and that's where the blood vessel is coming out, right through this foramen. There are many times that you'll have more than one actual opening, more than one foramen, so you need to look for two. And the other is that the blood vessel can actually bifurcate, and you can have more than one blood vessel as well. Once you're at this point, I think when I first was in practice, so again, more than 20 years ago, or when I was a resident 25 years ago, we would often put a clip on this blood vessel. Now I find that, especially as we're doing more and more skull base surgery and tumor surgery, just using a bipolar, now that we have a lot of endoscopic bipolars, is often just sufficient. So in order to get better exposure, you can remove. You want me to stop for a second?
No, you're good.
Okay. You can remove a little bit of this bone so that you can see the area a little bit better. And you can actually use a kerosene sometimes, maybe. Yeah, that'll work. A kerosene is a great instrument right here to follow the bone and remove the bone going out towards the side. So as you're doing that, you can just really start to see the vessel much better. Here's with a kerosene. You don't necessarily have to do this, but I think in the lab, it's very helpful to do this so you really can get a better idea of where it's coming through and looking at the actual foramen. Once you have that, using something like an ostium seeker to then dissect around the blood vessel can be very helpful. So here you want to just, especially if you're planning to put a clip on this, you want to just gently dissect around from both directions so that you have it 360, and then you would be able to do an endoscopic clip applier to be able to apply a clip right onto that blood vessel. And again, you really want to spread all the way through this area. I'm only seeing one vessel here, but again, you really want to make sure that you don't see anything else as you're doing this dissection. So then once you have have it 360 here, which I almost have, now you're all the way around it. Right here, you can see. And then we're going to pretend like we're doing an endoscopic clip applier, but we're actually cutting it. So now we're coming through, chewing through, like a little rat, chewing through that, gnawing through it. And so you would just use an endoscopic clip there, or use your suction bovie, or use behind it. Yeah, we can keep looking to see if there are any other branches that are back here. And I think this is actually really useful as well. If you want to keep going, you can get to Vidian Canal. And the other thing we were talking about this the other day is as you're thinking about that posterior nasal nerve ablation, as you're lifting in this area, you often can see little fibers that probably, oh, maybe that's another little blood vessel right there. Let me see. So just play around with this a little bit because you'll see these little indentations that are coming out. This does look like maybe there's something right here that you can see. So you could extend this back further to get to that space a little bit better. But it's a really nice, and then once you're done, basically you just put the mucosa back over this. And then normally what I would do is just put a little Surgicel or something. You could use a variety of different absorbable packs to just keep that in good position. All right, so I think is that a?
Yep.
All right, so next we'll just switch to making a hole. So this is, if all of my residents and fellows will tell you that my main mantra when we're operating is don't go crazy. So this is your chance to really go crazy. So I'm just gonna go ahead and see how hard it is. You'd have to drill.
Sure.
See if we can actually make a hole.
We're trying to think about areas that might be obvious for cranial base violation. Stacey's gone pretty posteriorly there.
Yeah.
As we come more anteriorly at the insertion of the middle turbinate, maybe more likely there, lateral lamella cribriform, where the stair step is a little bit higher, maybe a little bit easier to violate into the cranial base, but you can see that
This
it's...
guy's got a thick skull base.
And so I've got a drill here in case you want to...
Let's drill it.
Oh, is it? Okay.
My legs are not as long as Ian's. So we'll just go ahead and
Is it working?
drill through. All right. And typically, I think what's probably the most useful in the lab, where's the suction for a second, I think. This will be
You
fine.
want suction?
No, it'll be okay. There was just some fluid that was there. So if this happens, and I think the panel later today, we're going to talk about this a little bit more as well. So here's our defect. The first thing, if this happens just when you're in the operating room, is to really get a better sense of the entire bony defect and make sure that you actually remove all of the mucosa around it. So that's the first step. Now I can't find my hole that I made. There it is. So you want to really remove all of the mucosa from the surrounding bone so that you can clearly see your defect right here. Once you've done that, this is a really small hole that I made. And so the nice thing about when this happens in the operating room, it's not a nice thing if it happens, but it definitely can. And if you're doing enough sinus surgery, there is the potential that it will, is that you can repair this just with a free mucosal graft, especially when it's really a tiny one like this. So I was wondering, maybe I could cut part of the septal mucosa, just like use that. Do you want me to do that? As a little... So normally we would use something else, like I would use my middle turbinate. One of my very favorite grow-tos is just the nasal floor, which is very easy to harvest a nice free mucosal graft. But we're gonna ruin this septoplasty that Arif did just at Blakesley or something.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you. So we'll use this as our graft, maybe. And then essentially, once you have the defect and you've skeletonized it, you know that you've cleared all the mucosa from around it. If you're just planning to do a free mucosal graft, essentially all you need to do
Straight curette. Here's a 45, and I'll find you a straight. Here's straight.
is just lay the graft over the area. You want to make sure that you've made it so that the mucosa is facing out. And normally I would make it bigger than what I did just from the septum, but essentially you just want to layer that right over the space so it's overlapping the bone and you have the entire dural defect covered. And then what I would do is then use Surgicel over this. There are a lot of different options for putting packing in. I do Surgicel, then some gel foam, and then I would use a Miracell to leave that in place. And we'll talk about that more in the panel discussion. The other thing, I don't want to take up too much time. The other thing I was just going to show is the outline of a nasoseptal flap, which is a much bigger option as far as being able to do a skull base reconstruction. While you're here in the lab today, I think it's great to be able to do that. This is the sphenoid ostium right here. And so the outline for the flap, the top edge, the top cut is going to be right sort of in the mid portion of this of the sphenoid ostium coming up this direction. Here we're missing a little bit of the septum, and you can bring it all the way to the very front to essentially where you would make a septoplasty incision. Inferior to the sphenoid ostium, you're going to come all the way down here, so right at the bottom of right at the edge of the choana, and then you're going to make the incision here. And then you're going to come down onto the nasal floor. You want to make sure that you're on the hard bone. You're not at the junction with the soft palate. And then you can extend that incision all the way laterally if you would like. And then it's going to come all the way to the front to meet this. So usually I do that outline with a needle tip bovie, except for the superior edge. So I use because of concerns for smell loss. So I'll use a scissor at the very top. One of the most important things is that before you actually elevate the flap, you definitely want to make sure that you elevate this posterior edge and make sure that you've gone all the way through. Because if you elevate the flap then posteriorly without doing that very well, you can often then get very confused about where the edge of the flap is. So you want to make sure that you make that full incision all the way down on the nasal floor into the front. And then you can go ahead and start elevating just like you would for a septoplasty. Here, because we have this, should I make a cut there?
Sorry?
Should I make a cut and just connect that, or I don't want to mess anything up for the next, yeah. So here it would just sort of be along here and again, right to the level of the sphenoid ostium, sort of mid portion right there. And then you just elevate everything posteriorly. Normally, if we were doing this for a skull base surgery, we would tuck that into the back of the nasopharynx, do the rest of the surgery, and then lay it back up at the end. Anything else I should cover? All right, we're all done.